Bonjour, OFPs, and welcome to another episode of the Off-Field Players Podcast, the only podcast for aspiring sports industry professionals. I'm your host, Phil Paul, and I hope everybody's having an awesome week or weekend by the time you're listening to this, as always. And yeah, I know it's been a minute. I think it's been about over a month since I did an episode, but a lot has happened in the span of a month. And yeah, definitely great to be back doing another Off-Field Players Podcast episode. And I have a very special guest right next to me who I'm very happy to be featuring in this informational interview. Another one to add to the informational interview playlist. And yeah, overall, very excited to be doing this episode. And based on the title, you could probably tell what this episode is going to be about. But there's going to be a lot more that meets the eye when it comes to this very talented lady I have next to me. But before I go any further, I do want to give some condolences to some of the big names in sports that we have lost in the recent month. Towards the end of May, lost basketball great Bill Walton, and he's an off-field player in his own right after his playing days, being a broadcaster, mainly for college basketball. You probably would have known him for most of his work from that point on if you didn't watch him play. But yeah, Bill Walton, a tough loss there. Jerry West, another basketball icon, gone but not forgotten, passing away at the age of 86. Of course, we all know him as the logo, the silhouette of him on the NBA logo. So definitely a tough loss there. And he was also an OFP in his own right, being an executive for the Los Angeles Lakers, the Golden State Warriors, and even the Los Angeles Clippers for many years. And definitely a tough loss there. And then as of a couple of days ago, we lost an icon, not just in his own sport, but just in the sports world altogether. The Say Hey Kid, Willie Mays. I mean, tough loss there. And, his memories will never be forgotten. One of the best to ever do it, best player to ever step on a baseball diamond. And even with this week, yesterday, as of this time recording, it was Juneteenth, just celebrating the accomplishments he made as a Black athlete and is paving the way for many Black athletes later down the line in his heyday. And then, just a big celebration happening today in baseball with the MLB doing a tribute to the Negro Leagues with the matchup between the San Francisco Giants, the team that Willie Mays played for, and their game against the St. Louis Cardinals, actually tonight in Willie Mays' hometown of Birmingham, Alabama, at Rickwood Field. And yeah, just a lot of tough losses. We lost some good ones this month, but overall, they've paved the way, not just as athletes, but as well as also as OFPs. Willie Mays spent some time in the San Francisco Giants front office as a advisor, and just kept around the game after his playing days, and just made an impact for many young athletes, many of his fans, and just many of the people in the baseball community that are OFPs in their own right. So definitely, I'm sending our condolences and our prayers to the legends that we've lost in these past few weeks. And with that being said, I do want to transfer over to the lighter side of things, where I'm very happy to be introducing my guest officially for this episode. And, me and this guest have had built so much chemistry in probably the past season, I would say. We both were interns and we were co-interns, primarily doing great work in our own right. And she is also a former athlete turned OFP as of last year. So this is definitely a big change for her, but she is a talent, ladies and gentlemen. I kid you not. This lady here has done amazing work, and I've been able to see it with my own eyes for how talented she is at her craft, being, social media, TikToks. I'm sure, for those that have seen her work, they're probably amazed by what she's been able to put out, aside from sports, but as well as also in skincare as well. So I don't want to, just ramble on about it. I just want to get to things, and because I'm very excited for this interview. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, OFPs, allow me to introduce to the Off-Field Players Podcast, Miss Hind Abdelouahid. How are you, Hind?
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. I'm excited for this episode. Thank you, Philip, for having me on this episode. And yeah, I appreciate your work. I appreciate everything you do for your channel, for people, for OFP. I think it's a very great idea. I've told you this many times before, and I can't wait to see it flourish with the time to come.
Yeah, well, it's definitely great to have you on, Hind. And I know it's like forgive us if we were too loose on this. Like, I mean, we've had great conversations in the past in regards to, just us working together as well as also us getting to know each other and, just really just becoming great friends at this point. And, and this is something that, you can attest to for all the OFPs out there, the inspiring ones, that when you do get into these positions working in the sports industry, you're going to come across a lot of people that you're going to build rapport with and build strong relationships with. And, me and Hind are just that example from what we were able to do this past season. And, and Hind's got a fascinating story in her own right. I mean, this lady's been on a journey in many ways. And, it's definitely great that, it's a blessing that I can highlight her on a podcast like this to be able to share her story and just the accomplishments that she's been able to achieve over time, especially with us being around almost the same age, just about. Yeah. So definitely, I'm very happy to have Hind on, and it would behoove me to not have people get to know you for who you are. just go straight into your background, where you're from, just your upbringing. Do you have any brothers? Just kind of give people that spiel. Just to start things out.
Yeah, so my name is Hind. As you know by now, I'm 25 years old. I was born in Sacramento, California. I grew up a little bit everywhere. I grew up in Denver a little bit. I grew up in Dallas. I grew up in San Jose. Most recently in San Jose, in the Bay Area. I have 2 siblings. I have an older brother and a younger brother. I'm the middle child. We're a family of 5. Most of my family, like my cousins, grandparents, and all that, they all live in France. So I'm pretty far away from most of my family. I have my uncle on my dad's side who lives in Florida now. He used to live in Sunnyvale, but they recently moved. It's been a few years now, but they moved to Florida. So, they're the only ones that we have here in the U.S., but most of my family's in France. I'm French American. My parents are both French, born and raised there. They came to the States for school. My dad for basketball in college, and my mom just for school. And I don't know what more to say. I am I guess you can say retired. I wouldn't really say retired, but I played professional tennis. I did that for quite a while, I played tennis for like a little over 10 years, maybe 11, 12 years, somewhere around that. Now I create content. I'm a content creator, UGC creator. I do skincare, I do sports, I do lifestyle, I do it all, man. I guess that's what I can say about myself.
I feel like saying doing it all is an understatement. I mean, you do a lot.
I do doing stuff.
Yeah. But no, Hind's just definitely just awesome in many ways, very talented in social media. And, just to kind of go a little bit more further in, as she mentioned, she's, French American. But fun fact about Hind is that her father, Tariq Abdelouahid, was actually the first French player to play in the NBA. Was drafted back in the late 90s by the Sacramento Kings. Had careers, playing for the Nuggets, the Mavericks, just to name a few teams. And, post playing days, was able to help him, in training to become a professional tennis player, which she's been able to accomplish. And, just kind of going a little bit more into her story, just talking about, just her career from tennis to, growing up with a father that played in the NBA, professional athlete. And just, going into just that aspect of the story, coming from such an athletic background and a background that is, nourished, someone that's hardworking as Hind. And, just overall with, the timing of this being so perfect, with Hind holding French citizenship, it's actually perfect timing because this summer, the 2024 Summer Olympics will be taking place in Paris, France. So the Olympics is returning back to Paris this summer, and it's definitely an exciting time, especially with just the excitement around the games being back and just the storylines heading in, and the surprises that we'll see from the great athletes that will be gracing the athletic facilities of Paris throughout the late summer. And we're definitely going to touch more into that. But just as far as Hind, with your upbringing, having a dad playing in the NBA and him being the first of many French players to lay down the foundation. What was that like?
It wasn't all, what do they say? Like flowers, chocolates and flowers, or I don't know what the saying is in English, but it wasn't all great sunshine, positivity all the time, if we're being honest. You're dealing with someone who has been the best at his sport. And so he knows what it takes to get to that level. He knows what it takes to be a professional athlete. As far as your approach to the sport, your work ethic, the consistency you have to have, the amount of time you have to spend, the sacrifices, all that he understood. So it wasn't always easy, but definitely worth it in the end. I feel like he laid a great foundation in all of us, my brothers and I, as far as what we have to do if we want to be the best at whatever it may be. So for me, for a long time, it was sports. It was tennis. So yeah, he really instilled all those qualities in us that we were able to translate in our sports and beyond.
Yeah, definitely. And, even though I never saw your dad play, I did, go back and watch some highlights, especially, my time as an intern, just being able to look at the archival footage and just seeing, the impact they had for, for the teams he played on.
Yeah.
And even for the players he was able to play around. You think
Yes.
about the Kings from the late 90s, Peja Stojakovic, like those guys. The Mavericks, he was there around the time when Dirk was coming into the league. So, you just had the influx of foreign players, coming in just at a big time in history. And then you look at the NBA, how it is now with, like especially in French players, Victor Wembanyama,
Yes.
like recent first overall pick in the draft. You look at other French legends like Tony Parker, like Rudy Gobert, all making strides in the way. And then, just overall, just this international influx of players from Luka Doncic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, just to name a few. But, going in as far as just your upbringing in sports, you mentioned how, playing tennis, that was pretty much like the crux of your upbringing.
Yes.
When it comes to athletic ability. So just, touch a little bit on that in regards to, what wanted to make you go into tennis, what motivated you to want to continue to play at the highest level?
Yeah, well, I actually didn't want to play tennis in the beginning, if we're being honest. Tennis was not a sport that I chose to play. I was basically fine just going to my brother's soccer games and just cheering them on and supporting them. Until one day my parents decided to tell me, like, Hind, you have to pick a sport. Like, you got to do something. And so I wanted to do gymnastics because my best friend at the time, her name was Anya. She was this little Russian girl and she did gymnastics. And I thought that was like the coolest thing, like cartwheels, round offs, all that stuff. So I was like, gymnastics. My parents were like, no, you're going to be like 6 feet tall with big feet. Like, there's no way that you're going to do gymnastics. I was like, okay, fine. Then volleyball. And my dad was like, no. I was like, okay, then you guys pick for me then. So I went from that to playing soccer. So I first started with soccer, played that for a while, maybe up until seventh or eighth grade. I was still in middle school, like playing for school and like club. I played like select, premier, whatever, all that stuff. And then I played basketball as well at around the same time. And then I played tennis. I started tennis when I was 13. So at one point I was doing all three sports. Don't ask me how I was doing it. Don't ask me how I was doing my schoolwork. But I was doing all three at one point. And then my little brother was actually the one who was obsessed with tennis. Like, he would watch himself in the mirror and just he was in love with it. And my uncle on my mom's side, who's a pilot, he's the one who introduced us to the sport. And he would always tell my mom, like, go put your kids in tennis. It's a great sport. And she was like, like, they don't really seem to be super interested in it, except for my little brother. And Hind, like, she's already playing basketball. Like, I was already basically on track to, go D1 in basketball. Like, my dad knows how to form players and get them to that level. So I was kind of already on track to do that. And I just decided, I guess, I was like, yeah, let's just try tennis. And but it wasn't really from me. It wasn't something that I really wanted to do. I was kind of like forced to do it in a way, like put into it. And then we basically didn't do the whole recreational stuff for too long because when you have a dad who was a professional athlete, it's either you do something like to to the fullest that you can, or you don't really do it at all. So he did his research to find a good coach, a good academy. We moved about 2.5 hours away from our home. My mom, me, and my little brother, and we went full time basically, which is 5 hours a day every day of training and fitness, and then tournaments on the weekends, and that's how I got into tennis. Really, was through my uncle, and then we just kind of did it full time, pretty much like right away.
And just making a commitment like that as a teenager, I mean, it's just, again, it's rare, especially, for those that have come up playing in sports, they understand, like for myself, when it came to baseball, I was just, you play Little League. When you get to high school, you play for your high school team. But, I know for sports like tennis and golf, more of like those individual focused sports, you do find yourself just kind of, building your own path where you don't have like the traditional high school system or anything like that.
Yeah, if you want to get to the level that we were striving to get to, it would be the path wouldn't be traditional. So it means training every day, most likely in an academy setting where you're with other kids who are also doing the same thing, who have the same goals as you. But I think it's important to note that it wasn't just a commitment from us, like my brother and I. It's a commitment from the whole family, like my parents, my mom. Shout out to her because she's been with us like the whole time through everything, like our whole sports journey. I mean, taking care of us, and then my dad also, and then also my older brother who was not playing tennis. He's more into soccer, but him too, like he sacrificed a lot. So it's not just the commitment of the athletes. It's also the family, the support system. It's a whole thing. It's commitment from everyone to see, one person hopefully succeed.
Yeah, and that's what you hope for in an athletic family. Maybe not everybody's going to make it, but at least one person is going to make it. Yeah. I mean, especially you had great genes, so it's definitely something to focus on for sure. Yeah. So and you talk about the academy.
Yes.
You can give folks like a rundown of what the day to day was like. Waking up from like sun up to sundown. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. Yeah. What was it like to be able to train slowly on tennis, still be able to go to school, and just kind of just have this new lifestyle you're trying to adjust to?
Yeah, so as far as school is concerned, most of us at the academy were homeschooled. It was the only way that you could really train that much and still do school at the same time. So everybody had a different, their system was a little different. So depending on what school, like what homeschooling system they chose to do, some was completely online. Others, a teacher would come like once a week and check over their work. So depending on which you chose, it would be a little bit different. But as far as my schedule, I'd wake up in the morning, I would eat breakfast, and then I would head to the courts. We'd have practice from 10 to 1 or 10 to 12. So that's the first, like the morning practice. And then we would have a break for lunch, and then we'd go like 2 to 4-ish. So another 2 hours. And then we would have fitness just like right after. So it was either like 4:30 to 5:30 or 4:30 to 6. And then we take a little break. And oftentimes, most of the time, I would also do the after school practice. So the after school practice would start maybe at like 6-ish or even 5:30. And it would be an hour and a half or two. So I would do that as well. And then get back home, shower, eat dinner, do homework, and then repeat it all again the next day. So it was really intense. And since I started tennis really late, like in tennis, most kids start like super early, like at 6. Even 6 is like kind of late. Some start at 2 years old. Some, their parents even know before they're born that they're going to play tennis. Like it's really like that. I started super late. Like I started around like 13 and a half is when I started playing seriously. And so I had a lot of catching up to do. So that extra like 2 hours of practice that I was doing really helped me. It was just like getting reps. It was all about getting reps, as many reps as possible. So yeah, I was doing that. That was a day to day. We would do that about every single day. And then we'd have a day off a week. So like maybe on a Sunday if we weren't playing tournaments on the weekends. So yeah, that's how our day to day life looked like in the academy.
Yeah, and you just think about the rigor that it takes to be able to do that. I mean, when you look at how other sport-specific academies are, you say, for example, like the IMG Academy down in Bradenton, Florida, you know, those athletes on that campus, it pretty much is sports. They treat sports like a 9 to 5, where you're going to school, doing classes, and then you're training, right, doing 3 a days. Like you're in the weight room, you're in your film rooms, like doing film study with your coaches, and just molding yourself into becoming this pro athlete. And I think, you know, like, and I'm sure you could attest to this, you know, spending some time in France and your dad, you know, growing up in maybe like a non-traditional system out how it is here in the United States with trying to develop young athletes and the professional athletes, to where in Europe, you know, this common continent, you know, you have sports teams that do the academy system. So where they're scouting for young prodigies, they're signing contracts to say, hey, you know, they're talking to their parents saying, hey, we want to send your kid to our location, our campus, so they can train to hopefully one day make our first team for our pro squad. And then they go through like the youth rankings, you know, like 9U, 10U, 11U, and then so on. And at the same time, you know, they're being dedicated to this like square box like schedule, to where they have like a 20-minute increment here, a 30-minute increment here, 1 hour increment here, and then it just continues to, you know, stay consistent until they develop into, you know, pro level status or pro level age.
Yeah, so the system is very different. As far as here in the US, you have more opportunities and leeway to do things your own way. Do you know what I mean? So in France, for example, like it's either they know fairly young if you're gonna play a sport and you're gonna do it to play like professionally. It's either you do that or you don't really play sports. This whole idea of kind of like of leisure, like having it be a leisure activity, like for kids that are young and our age, that's not really how it is over there. So they start super young, right? And they're already scouting talent, basically, especially in all sports, but you know, sports like soccer as well. Like they know right away when you're young who's gonna be, you know, the next whoever, and then they mold you like from then on, so that by the time you're 16, 17, you're already a professional athlete. So even the idea of going to college to play a sport, like being a student athlete, they don't have that over there. So that's why it's super different. And also the school system is different. So, you know, here you can even go to school, you know, finish a little bit early. The latest school finishes is probably at 3. And even then you have time to like do after school sports or, you know, extracurricular activities. In France, you don't. Like you're at school all day until like, I mean, my cousins, like they would come home at like 6, 7, like super late. So you don't even have time to try to pursue a sport unless you already put into these academies or, you know, places where they're already building professional athletes. Like, so that's what I'd say. I'd say that in the US, you have more, there's more options that you can cater to you as an athlete. Yeah.
Yeah. And then just kind of just bring up this question like on topic, because, you know, I've seen what the traditional way for athletes in the United States can go. And I've also read and studied like how athletes are being trained like over in other countries, you know, through the academy system. So just in your opinion, you know, what do you think is the best system for an athlete that's trying to pretty much make the sport that they're playing their life?
I think it depends on the sport, first of all. I think different sports require different things, different amount of attention. And yeah, that's what I'd say. It depends on the sport. But as far as tennis goes, I would say that you have to find, or any sport really, you have to find a system that works best for you, like that works best for you as an athlete in whatever sport that you're playing. Especially in tennis, I feel like there's a lot of people would look at what everyone else is doing and kind of just follow suit, just because that's what everyone's doing. The things that really matter are, your approach to the sport, your work ethic, and the amount of time, like the time it takes. You know how they say it's like, I don't know, 10,000 hours to make a professional or something. Mm-hmm. Things like that, it takes about that amount of time, right? So depending on your talent level, it might be a little bit different. Depending on your background, there's a lot of factors, but time, you need to put time in. Like that's not something that you can shortcut your way around. But as far as the system, you gotta, finding a system that works best for you. So knowing what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what you need to work on. I mean, I started late, so, my dad understood that, in tennis, technique was super important. So he did his research to find a coach that could teach us the right technique. So we learned that. And then, that's a phase that you have to got to get down. And then you go into, the tactical side of the game and start hitting with other people. That's when the academy setting really comes into play, where you can hit against different players who hit different balls and whatnot. So it's really, I would say it's whatever system is best catered for you. And it depends on the type of learner you are. Some athletes are visual learners. Some it's more like they're more hands-on. You have to find the right coach, find the right environment. The athlete themselves has to be, relatively happy, enjoying where they're at. Because, if you're not enjoying something that you're doing every single day, there's going to come a point where you're just going to, you're going to have enough of it. So that's super important. So just cater whatever system that you think would be best for the athlete, I would say.
Yeah, and you touched on a good point there where you talk about, just catering to this right system and also just understanding your limits, because, I feel like if you're, or not so much if you're like a kid, but like, if you're a parent that's trying to help their kid, become better at their sport, of course we have these days, sometimes you see like the overbearing parent that's trying to push their kid as hard as possible to the absolute limit to, reach their full potential at just a young age when they're still fully developing, not just as an athlete, but as a person.
Yeah.
It can be, or very dwelling on the mind when it comes to just, understanding like, oh man, like I need to perfect this, I need to perfect that, and need to, make sure I'm going to practice on time, to make sure that I'm, doing extra after practice, when you don't want to, in a way, run yourself into the ground to where, you start to become, burned out, by what you're trying to do. Understandably, like it is tough to be an athlete and stick to a demanding schedule, aside from, going, doing chores at home, getting your homework done on time, as well as also, doing it like repeatedly, on the set schedule. And it's just something that I think we can study a little bit more on, like, okay, like how much can a kid be pushed until they reach their limit, or until they come to the realization of burnout and just, understand like, oh, they won't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, I think that's super delicate. It depends on the athlete too. It depends on the kid. Some kids have different thresholds than others, depending on just who they are, depending on the family that they were brought up with, depending on their interests. I mean, that's why it's complicated and delicate, because it's different for every athlete. But as far as you have, like, if you have the right support system and you have parents or people who have your best interest at heart, I think, that's the best way to go. And it does help. I mean, in my situation, it helped that I have a dad who, played sports. And so he understands that side of it. So there were a lot of things that, you couldn't really get past him. It was just like, this is what you're going to do. And this is what you need to do to get to the level that you say you want to be at. So that's like step one. That's the basic, like this has to be done. A lot of people I understand that a lot of people don't have the, that knowledge. It's knowledge at the end of the day. He had it because he comes from a family of athletes and he was an athlete himself. So that's something that he passed on to us. But, you see a lot of like parents those overbearing parents that you're saying. I think it's a mixture of things. It's a mixture a lot of things. So tennis itself is a super expensive sport. So that's the first thing, is you're putting a lot of money, you're investing in your kids. And that's a lot of money, and results don't happen right away. And there's this idea of, like some parents, unfortunately, kind of want to live through their kids. So whether it was because they weren't able to play a sport when they were younger, or it's something they're super passionate about that they can't do, and they have kids now and they kind of want to push them to do it, which is fine. Kids need to be pushed and directed into like towards a certain path. But when it becomes overbearing, when it becomes like those overbearing parents that you say, it's too much, because then the kids, like at some point, are just gonna have a burnout, as you said, because they either can't handle it or they don't want to handle it anymore, and it's just it just puts a lot of pressure, I guess, unnecessary pressure on the kids. When in reality, if you understand how long the process is, that too, like it's not. People often, like we often see these athletes, we see them during their glory days, like, we see them winning right now. It's like, you have no idea how much time and effort they put on for years. And not only them, as I said, like their family, their support system, everybody, just for you to see that one moment of glory.
Yeah, definitely. And, you mentioned how you played Division I tennis, at St. Mary's College. Shout out to all the Bay Area OFPs,
Go Gales.
Yeah, go Gales. So, I just want you to talk about just the recruiting process of, going through, wanting to play college tennis, especially with, you saying how late you started. And I know, just from that time when you started playing up to the time when you were about to graduate high school, I'm sure the window of trying to get looked at by a D1 school is very, very small. And, you did the impossible to make it happen. So just kind of tell that story.
Yeah. So I, my goal was to play Division I tennis. I remember we have I don't even know if they still use this anymore in tennis. Maybe not, because they use UTR rating. But we had what was called tennis recruiting. And it was basically like a website where every tennis player had their own profile, and that's where it showed you like how many stars you had. So you either had 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, 4 star, 5 star, blue chip. If you're a blue chip, you're top, I want to say like top 10 in the country. If you're a 5 star, you're top 25, maybe around there. Don't quote me, because it's been a while. But I vividly remember like being at the academy, at Gorin Academy, and my coach at the time, Vitaly Gorin. We were walking down the side of the clubhouse to get to the course, because we had a private lesson. And I was looking at my tennis recruiting. I was like, oh, I have 1 star. And I was like, is that good? And he looked at me, he's like, no. I'm like, oh, okay. Like I had no idea like what the stars meant, whatever. And yeah, 3.5 years later of like super, hard work, everything that we just talked about, then came around my junior year. I believe end of junior year, beginning of senior year is when I started to get offers. So like a lot of offers. I was getting some like here and there, but D1, like, schools like Northern Arizona, Michigan State, Howard, shout out HBCU, St. Mary's, UOP, like a lot of schools, many that I'm not, Colorado, Pac-12. All those schools started recruiting me. So the recruiting process was pretty much standard. We try to respond back to as many as we can. If we're interested, we meet the coach, talk to them, see what they have to offer. And I believe it's 6, 5 or 6 official visits. So I took my official visits. I also took unofficial visits to the schools that were recruiting me in California, like UC Santa Barbara, UOP, St. Mary's, et cetera, the ones that weren't too far from home that I could just go to. And then, I went on my official visits as well, got a good feel for the coaches, got a good feel for the school, got a good feel for the players, like that would potentially be my teammates. Which is a super important thing to do, because the schools that were my top choices ended up being my bottom choices after I visited all of them. Yeah. And for different reasons. Some were coaching reasons, some were, the girls that would have been my teammates, like where their heads were at. Some was just the vibe that I got at the school, just being there. I was like, this doesn't feel right. I don't know. And, so things like that. So it's super important to go on visits if you have the opportunity to do so. So yeah, that's how my recruiting process went. It happened at the end of, junior, senior year, and then decided on St. Mary's.
So I just checked all the boxes.
Yeah. Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah, I know that's definitely important. Not even just for someone that's trying to go to college, but as well as also an athlete. You want the full package because you just think about it as for your commitment, that you're committing to, and just understanding what you want out of the college experience. Whether that's as an athlete, a student, or just somebody that's trying to get their education in some degree. It's definitely important. And,
your major.
Your major, of course, definitely very valued. And I mean, St. Mary's, like more common that you hear about St. Mary's in basketball than tennis. So, you could talk about what the competition was like because, St. Mary's, with them being in the West Coast Conference, it's schools like, University of the Pacific over in Stockton, Pepperdine, Loyola Marymount, Santa Clara, University of San Francisco, a lot of deep representation when it comes to athletes up and down California. So just talk about the competition.
Yeah, WCC was a strong conference. We would, like St. Mary's women's tennis would on average finish like 2-3 in the West Coast Conference, which is really good. So, that's one of the reasons why I was attracted to going there. Lisa Alapaz at the time, who was the coach at the time, had done some great work as far as making that program a winning program. We had the schools we were competing against. These girls were good, especially I remember Pepperdine. They always had like basically pros to write like down their lineup, which was great because, it was a great time to, gauge your level against these girls. And all the schools really, it's a small conference, private schools, but definitely great competition for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And, women's college tennis, it's a lot of the starting place for many of the top women players you see in the pro circuit now, especially with, just how much there is out there nationally. And I just think, with the, I think like the next major that's coming up is Wimbledon. And, or Wimbledon just passed.
What just happened? Was it Roland Garros?
Yeah, Wimbledon just passed.
Or was it Wimbledon? I don't even know. I don't even know. I haven't been keeping up with tennis. But Alcaraz won in the men's, but I don't even know which one it was. I don't know if that was Clay.
Yeah. It changes a lot, but you just look at the top circuit right now with, you got Naomi Osaka, Coco Gauff, just making waves in the sport.
Yeah.
It's definitely, huge thing, especially with, the foundation that was set by Serena Williams and Venus Williams. It could be a segue into just talking about, who was your tennis influence coming up, or who was your favorite player?
I'd say my favorite player, I mean, on the women's side, it'd probably be Serena, obviously. She's just so dominant and, being Black, it's just, that's who you looked up to was Serena. But as far as favorite player, I'd probably say like Gaël Monfils, French player. He's a great dude also. So like that just helps. He's just a great person. I'd say he was probably my favorite player.
Okay, so you're going through college. You're playing college tennis. You're on the circuit. So as far as just the different tournaments that St. Mary's would go play in, what was that like? Like, how was the system working, especially with how many, girls were on the team?
Yeah, so most of the tournaments that you would play in college was during the fall, and I was never in school in the fall. I was in school, but online. So that's when I would, go train in Europe and play tournaments in Europe, Africa, and all these other countries. So I basically would come back to school just for the season. So as far as season play, you have in college tennis, you have 8 girls on the team. 6 girls are playing and 2 are like alternates. So you would have, the number 1 doubles team, the number 2 doubles team, and number 3 doubles team, and then singles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You'd go out, play your doubles first if you're playing doubles. And then once whoever would get that point, the team who gets the doubles point is whoever wins the 2 out of 3. And then, so that counts as 1 point, and to win is first to 4. You got to win four points, I guess. And then the singles would go out. So singles 1 through 6. Yeah, they would all play singles, and then you battle it out and see who wins.
So what was your matchups?
Oh, if I remember, I played 1 doubles that I know for sure, and then singles I played. I want to say 2, 3, 4, or 3, 4 my first year, and then 4, 5 my second year, or 3, 4 something. Don't quote me on it. Boy, I don't even remember all that stuff. That's crazy. But I know that I played number 1 doubles. That I remember for sure. But yeah, it was like mixed up in the lineup.
Yeah, definitely. And I know, like, it's fascinating whenever I watch tennis. Used to the common like one-on-one matchups with seeing doubles. I mean, it's just like that coordination that you have to have with your partner. It's like it's insane. I mean, it's crazy to me. But okay, so you're going through college. Talk about making that transition and turning pro. What was that like for you?
I don't think it was a super crazy transition. I'd say the transition of going from playing full-time tennis to college tennis was more of a shock than college tennis to professional. Because you're going from, practicing 4 or 5 hours every day to playing in college where you're restricted in terms of hours. So you would practice like every day with your team for about 2.5 hours, but that wasn't necessarily enough because you used to do so much more. So I feel like that transition was a little bit, I wouldn't say hard, but it was a little different. And then going from there to going like from college to going pro, it transition wasn't too crazy. It's basically just, more tournaments. You're still practicing just as much as far as like, you do whatever. You set up a schedule that works for you, and then you play tournaments. So you'll have tournaments, wherever the tournament is at. So there's a schedule that comes out before the year, and you kind of pick your tournaments and go and compete wherever it's at.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about the traveling that you guys do, I'm sure you just didn't stay on the West Coast either. I'm sure you guys were traveling out of state just like any other college athletic program would do, especially in the times that we're in right now where, all this expansion and this conference realignment to where, you got teams going from California all the way to Florida, teams from Texas going to North Carolina, teams from Nebraska going to Massachusetts or something, so much intertwined in there. But also, you just think about in pro tennis where you're pretty much going from country to country to country to play in tournaments against different competition. That's a big toll on the body at times when it comes to just how demanding a tennis schedule can be, especially when you mix that in with training and just trying to balance everything else out.
Yeah, the tennis schedule is super demanding. You're traveling country to country and you're playing these tournaments, and you don't realize it, but there's there's jet lag you're dealing with. Being in another country, you're eating different foods, you're drinking different water, so you got to prepare for that, prepare for weather, just being in an environment that you're not used to, so you're out of your comfort zone most of the time. You're by yourself unless you travel with your coach. Even if you travel with your coach, like, you're still by yourself. And then, you go out there, you try to get the dub. If you don't, you bounce out and go play the next tournament. So it's really demanding. But I mean, I think there's jobs that are much more demanding in the world. So it's not, it's a privilege to be able to travel and to compete and play tennis matches. But you try to set up your schedule to where it makes sense, right? So you'll have like the Europe tour, and then you'll go play in Africa. So you're not, going back and forth type thing, but still grueling as it is. But like I said, it's not like, it's not all that. You got people who do much harder things. But,
So as far as just the places that you've been to play tennis, like what was your favorite country to go to?
oh wow!
And don't say France.
Okay, I'd say Morocco. I have background, like my mom's side of the family is Moroccan. So my mom was born and raised in France, but her family's originally from Morocco. So my grandparents are Moroccan, and just so being there was just so nice, just because of that. And then also it's beautiful. Like the Moroccans really know how to host. They're the best at it, in my opinion. Everything was just clean, impeccable. Food was amazing because they have Moroccan food, and Moroccan food is my favorite food. And they also have, the French food. So they got they have the croissant, pain chocolat, everything that the French have. So it's like a mixture of both. So it's like a best of both worlds. And the weather was great. It was much like Cali weather, a little windy at times, depending on where you are. Casablanca, if you're next to the ocean. I played in Rabat, which is another city in Morocco. But I'd say Morocco. Morocco is probably my favorite place. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like at times Morocco is a very underrated country.
It is. It really is. I think they try to keep it that way, though. I think it's like a hidden gem. It's like, if you know, you know. I have everybody I've spoken to that has either gone or visited. They're like, oh my goodness, it's such a beauty, and it really is. And the people are great, which makes it that much better.
Okay. And going into 2020.
Yeah.
And I know when we were talking earlier a few weeks back, you mentioned how 2020 was like a crazy time period to where you were traveling to go play tennis. So, just have that recollection of what you were what you were doing at the time, before the lockdown happened.
Yeah, 2020 was wild. I remember, if I remember correctly, I don't know if this happened. Did this happen before or after? There was a tournament that I played in Mexico. I remember getting super sick the day before we left. And when I got there, I think I had lost like 10 pounds in like a few days, just feeling awful. We went to the pharmacist. They gave me like an antibiotic. I felt the worst I had ever felt in my life. And my dad had actually been sick right before. And I was like, no, this is like worse than the flu. Like I had no idea what I had. Looking back at it, I probably had COVID. But I played a tournament in Mexico, and then came back. And I don't know, I'm probably messing up the dates, but what I remember that was probably before. I think that was like February. And then right before the lockdown, this is what happened. I was at SFO, San Francisco Airport. And my mom and I were heading to Canada because I was playing a few tournaments there. And I'm on Instagram. I scrolled through Instagram, and my friend had posted that all the tournaments had been canceled, and she was playing a tournament in Greece at the time. And I was like, what? Like, tournaments canceled? Like, was it just like your tournament in Greece? So I texted her, and she's like, no, apparently all the tournaments are going to get canceled. So then we got a message from the ITF saying that they were going to cancel all the tournaments until like further notice or whatever. So we had already checked in our bags, so we had to leave basically, and we were going to my uncle's, so it was fine. It wasn't like a big deal. But even when we got on the plane, it was weird. Everybody was separated, and we didn't realize what was going on. I think that's what it was. We were just like, what's going on? Like, and at the airport, I remember seeing like, you have people like regularly dressed with nothing on. You had some people with masks. I remember seeing someone with a full body like.
Like a
plastic
sanitization suit.
Yeah, basically. And I was like, what's going on? It was just like a weird time because nobody knew what was happening, and we kind of had a good idea because my mom watches like French TV almost every night, and they had already been talking about it in like December, but it was nothing concrete. And so that was right before the lockdown. It was crazy time.
Yeah, I know my recollection of it was I was actually just coming back from spring break because I went to go visit my sister in Chicago.
Yeah.
And then, I went back to New York. And then, like New York was the epicenter. Like, that's where everything was going down when it came to just, the virus spreading in the U.S.
Yeah.
And then at first, it would start out as classes getting canceled or moving to online.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the week, I'm starting to see my roommates move out. They're saying like, "Oh, I'm going back home. I don't know what's going to happen." And then, later that week, that was my turn to go home. So I was like on a plane back to Oakland, just not sure what's going to happen. I thought it was just going to be a few days or maybe a week I was going to be at home.
That's
clear out. At least that was like in my mind. That's what I was thinking before, it just started to get more crazier. And then, weeks turn to months, and then a month turns into a year. So it's just, 2020 was just a wild time, and especially in the sports world, because, when you first hear about, like you mentioned, your friend that was playing in Greece, posting about tournaments getting canceled, and then, next thing you know, other sports are getting canceled, like the NBA is going to lockdown, NASCAR is going into lockdown, MLB is locking down. They just started spring training. The NHL is going to lockdown. Then just the domino effect of every sport that was happening at the time, or that was in season at the time, was just on complete shutdown. It's just, again, it turned the sports world upside down. It's just never had anything like that. Maybe besides like the 2 world wars that we had. Yeah. But so you're still going to Canada. And you mentioned that your uncle is there, and your uncle lives in Quebec.
Yes.
Yeah, Quebec. Okay. So so during that time when you were at your uncle's in Quebec, like what was your mindset that like?
We knew the tournament was canceled, so it was kind of like, okay, we're just gonna try to train and just chill. But we were also a little panicking a little bit. My uncle's a pilot, so he was saying, he was letting us know what they were saying as far as like for the pilots and the planes, and he's super chill. I mean, he's a pilot, so I guess their job is to be like chill, like they have to be. We're over here panicking, and he's like, "No, it'll be fine. Like you'll have flights and that." And we're just panicking because we're like, "Well, what if they shut it down and we can't fly anymore?" It wouldn't be the worst of situations because we were with my uncle, so it's fine. But we wanted to just at that point, you just want to get home because, you don't know what's happening. So yeah, we were there. I don't remember how long we stayed there. But yeah, just trying to train until we hear more. And then we headed home, and then same thing at home. Like we just, went back to training, and it wasn't until the lockdown that, the people from the city literally came and like locked the ports on us. And he's like, "Yeah, you're going to have to go." And we're like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah." And they locked the ports on us. So then the ports were locked for about a month, I think. Yeah, a month. And then, so during that time, just working out, trying to stay fit, hitting a tennis ball, like on a, one of those little, what are those called? Those things that like holds a tennis ball, you hit it and it comes back to you. Okay. But we're not hitting out of court.
Like tetherball.
Yeah, exactly, like tetherball. But yeah, it was mostly just trying to stay fit. I wish I was a little bit more prepared. I would have had like movies to watch, things to do. I feel like we're just like kind of not on edge, but you don't know what's happening or what's going to happen. So it's very like unexpected energy type thing.
Yeah, I know for me, I just want to get back to school. Like just being stuck at home with nothing to do. I mean, I'm glad I didn't drive myself up the walls because, I guess when it was okay for people to go outside to exercise, at least when they said that, I was out just riding my bike, just, doing what I could. And then, I'm kind of surprised about tennis.
I know,
Like the tennis has got to be like the most socially distanced sport.
Yeah, well, it wasn't for tennis. It was because they knew people were going to come and just congregate at the tennis courts and just chill over there. So that's why they decided to just lock it.
Yeah, good point. And yeah, I mean, even with that, it's like, man, it sucks because how am I supposed to train or like how it's like, again, tennis is the most socially distanced sport that there probably is out there, and you just what else could you do besides maybe hit up against a wall or something?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely sucked, but I mean, it is what it is. Like, it wasn't. You had people that were dying, so not hitting a tennis ball was not the worst thing that could possibly happen. Like, sure, you want to be able to practice, but at the end of the day, it's as long as you're healthy, it's all that matters. Everything else can wait, type thing.
So, just knowing that you had, well, I wouldn't call it off time because I'm sure you're still trying to train, but when did you start to get into social media, start to see the power that content creating can have, and just turn to a hobby?
Yeah, so my mom's a photographer, and she was actually one of the first people to be on Instagram.
Yeah.
So yeah, crazy. So back when Instagram was just for photographers, so she was on there, and we always knew about like social media and about Instagram, but it was more for like photography. And even like you see my old stuff, like a lot of my posts are like, you know, pictures that my mom took of me like jumping in front of a wall or something. Like it wasn't very like business. There weren't, you know, ads, everything that's going on now. So it was like, I think that was the original time for Instagram. So as I said, my mom's a photographer. And so I was always like interested in that, but it wasn't until I would say it wasn't until lockdown that I really like honed into like content creation. Before the lockdown, prior to the lockdown, I was, you know, back when it was musically, like I would make like, you know, those funny like
TikTok.
yeah, exactly. Those like, you know, videos, like the dancing videos or whatever, like do stuff with my cousins, like we're just messing around type thing. But it changed. A lot of it changed like with TikTok coming about. So it wasn't until the lockdown when I found myself with like a lot more time to where I was like, oh, let's create content. Let's do it more. And then I started, you know, the whole UGC, you know, user generated content where you're making content for brands. So I started getting into that, and then that's when it just picked up. I had a plan, like I was you know, doing it, trying to post as much as possible, like, you know, once every day, having a consistent plan in place, and then doing research and just learning about it was very fascinating to me. So I would say the lockdown is when it really started picking up.
So talk about that a little bit, or with the brands that you're doing content for, like how that
happen. Some of them reached out, or most of them, they reach out to me. They say that, you know, we love your work, we love your page. We would love to, you know, send you, you know, products, skincare products, or outfits, you know, fashion, whatever your realm was. For me, it was mostly skincare, you know, purses and, you know, clothes or whatever. We'd love to send you this, and, you know, you can post about it if you want to. So it's different. Some are gifted, so they just gift it to you, and you can decide to post if you want to or if you don't. And others, you know, they'll pay you for it. So they send you a product, and, you know, you create a video for that product, and they compensate you for it.
Did that help, like, as a tennis player? Because, you know, you talk about, you know, the funding for tennis stars, you know, from endorsements. So is that in a way like your endorsement platform that you were using? Or?
No, I wasn't at that level yet. Like for tennis, you need to be making bank. Like you need to be making a lot of money. Like what I was doing was just like, you know, it's just the beginning stuff. So you're making like, you know, $100 here, $100 there, or 150, whatever. But it's not like enough to sustain. No, I wasn't yet at that level. I mean, you would have to be like a full-time content creator to be able to sustain the money you need to be a full-time tennis player, which just wouldn't be like possible unless you find a way to do it, you know, through your tennis. And I didn't want to mix both worlds. I didn't want to make content about tennis. So no, but that would have been cool.
You could have been like the founder for NIL. It was like the way that you
maybe honestly
doing it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe him was like the one of the originators of NIL endorsing. He like.
I don't think. Did you ever think about that? Like, they were like, you know what? Let's follow Hind's. No, I don't think so. But yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. So okay, so you're still in Canada. Like, let's just fast forward to you know, when things start to calm down. Like, you know, the world is starting to become at like a normal state with all that's going on, and then, you know, like sports leagues are pretty much getting back to normal to a certain degree. So what was it like just getting back to competitive tennis? Like, now that you feel like you have to knock the rust off, or like were you like ready to come back and then ready to go?
I definitely felt like I had to knock the rust off. I think the first few tournaments were just weird. Like, it was not. it was the first time that I had taken more than 3 days off since I first started playing tennis. So all of a sudden, and like I'm not the type of player. I wasn't the type of player that was, like a feel type of player where you can just like, oh, I just need to practice one time and then I'm back in my rhythm. Like, no, I needed time to get back into rhythm. And then there's one thing to be in rhythm for, practice and whatnot. And then there's another thing to when you're playing a match and you're getting back into your like competitive mindset and all that. So it took some time for me, but I'm sure it took time for a lot of other people. Everybody was kind of dealing with it differently. So I guess that's the beauty about tennis is that everybody's going to deal with the same thing. So you can be playing a match if you're dealing with the wind. Your opponent's dealing with the wind too. You're dealing with whatever it is. Everybody's dealing with the same thing, and it's who's going to adjust best, really. Yeah.
So, describe your first tournament back. Like what was the country? Who were you playing? If you remember, what was that like?
Yeah, if I remember, it's the key phrase. Because gosh, I'm not one of those. I'm always so like fascinated by people who can like remember. Oh, this like this day I played against this person. I don't remember. Like after I play it, unless it's like some crazy like a tournament that I won, or even the tournaments that I won, I don't like remember them that vividly. But I think it was a tournament. It's like a UTR tournament, like a Pro Series tournament that I played in California. I think in SoCal in Newport. I want to say if I'm not talking crazy. Yeah, I don't even remember what happened, so I can't even tell you. But I know that
Did you lose?
I really don't know. I actually don't remember. Like Philip, like I'm saying, I don't remember. Like maybe I won a few matches. Maybe I won a few matches. I don't know if it was like a round robin type situation or what, but it felt good to get back and compete again. I just remember it being a little weird because at this point now people have masks, right? So it's like you're wearing masks and even that, like you have to, social distance, whatever. I think at some point there were some tournaments where you could only bring like one person, like, like your coach or your parent, whatever. You couldn't bring a lot of people to, not that I would bring anyone, but yeah, it was just different. Just different. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to go kind of jump ahead a little bit to where you decide to, you're 25, so like it's weird to say that you retired from tennis,
I know.
especially with how young.
And it's not like I was like making. I wasn't like
you
number one in the world or top 10. Then you could say you retired, but
it's not like you're in your late 30s or in your like 40s and you're hanging it up. Like now you're 25.
I say transition to an off-field player.
I like that. I'm gonna use that. That is much better. Okay, well, from transitioning from the on-field player to the off-field player, just kind of describe that. What was it like to just be like, I've had my fun playing tennis. I want to do other things. So what was that like?
Honestly, it was great. I didn't feel like I regretted it at all. I didn't feel like I missed it at all. It was just time. And when I transitioned, I remember for a good month. At that point, I was like looking for jobs, whatever. So I did that for about a month, and then that's where I found the internship position with the Kings, and then. In October, I went to France, so I visited my family, which was great because it was the first time that I had like vacation time where I could just, waking up. Oh, we don't have to go to tennis, or we don't have to like, set up the times for the courts and all that stuff. I was just kind of like, we could just do whatever we wanted, and it was so nice to be with family because, like I said, most of my family's in France, so seeing my grandparents was great. Seeing my cousins, aunties, uncles, it was just a great time, and we're there for a month, and the month was just like the perfect amount of time.
And your extended family is based in Paris, right?
Yeah, so I have like my auntie lives in Paris, like in Paris. My grandma and my other aunties, my other auntie and my uncles live in like the suburbs, les banlieues de Paris. So it's like they're about like 10, 15 minutes out of Paris, like the city itself. So surrounding neighborhoods, I guess you can say. But they even want to call it like Grand Paris, which means like big Paris, because it's like, you take the metro or you take the metro and you're there. You're in Paris in a few stops. So.
What's like the mile radius, say, from like the Eiffel Tower or like from Notre Dame? Or
Oh, I have no idea. I'm not the one to ask Siri. Hey Siri, because I'm not the one that I don't know. But it's not far, so like, and we're so used to like that's the thing. Also, we're so used to far distances here.
Mhm.
Over there, it's everything's close by, so it's really yeah. I guess it's like New York. My mom says I've never been to New York, but she said that it resembles Paris, like the closest like American city.
Yeah, I can definitely see that just from, cityscape. Like, of course, me going to college in New York, I could just get on the subway and it'd take me like 10 minutes to get to Manhattan from Queens. Or, I could get, from Queens to Brooklyn, like by way of like an Uber or something or a taxi.
Yeah.
And, it'll take me like 15 minutes, just getting there. But again, New York traffic is insane. So, it's a big difference. But I think that, well, of course, I never traveled outside the country before, so my knowledge of how like other cities and their cityscapes, as far as just the like the landscape and everything, is like not the greatest. But whenever I look at Paris on the map, I see the main roads or like the main highways like this in like a circle.
Yeah, like the snail shape.
Yeah, the snail shape. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not far away. Everything's pretty close by, and with the metro, you can get there in a few stops. It's not. Yeah, I couldn't give you like the mile radius, but yeah, it's not far away. Yeah, for sure.
So, what were the summers like? When your dad was in the off season, and like you and your family going to Paris just to spend the off season. Just talk about that. What were the summers in Paris like?
Yeah, so from what I remember, before sports started, we were in France. I think not. I wouldn't say every summer, but we were there a lot. Just because we had. I mean, it's off season for my dad, so if we weren't home, we'd be over there. But yeah, sometimes during the off season, he would go to France, I believe, and like play, with his French friends or the teammates that he had over there or whatever. So if he went and did that alone, we'd be home. So depending on where we were at. Dallas or Denver, but I was fairly young, and so I have memories of France when I was young, but they're not as profound and as strong as like the past few years when I went back, because now my cousins are older, I'm older, I remember it, and it's a little different. But what I remember that stays the same is just great times, like being with my grandparents, being in the house that my mom grew up in. It was just great times.
Yeah, and just even like France is a beautiful country, by the way.
Yeah.
So shout out to all the French OFPs that will be tuning in. I don't know if I could translate what we're saying to French to this, but like try to find some way to do subtitles. But
that'd be cool.
Yeah, but you think about the different French cities. Of course, Paris being the main one, but then you got Marseille, Lyon, Nice,
Versailles,
Bordeaux, Versailles. What? See, I was thinking of another city. Oh, Orleans.
What is that?
Orleans, France.
Oh,
yeah. New Orleans goes to Orleans.
There you go. I learned something.
Yeah,
learned something new today. Wow.
Yeah, but just overall, the culture of France is very unique to the world, and of course, France has done things that have been an influence on just the global aspect of different countries, and and even talk about your Moroccan connections. Just everything that's in regards to just upbringing. I would say kids that were raised in France, they probably think differently, but also have certain cultures or customs that they would follow through when it comes to just adjusting to life. So what was the upbringing of the friends that you have in France as well as the family? What was it like for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. As far as upbringing, I mean, I grew up in the US, but I was raised by French parents and I had French family. I guess I never put that much thought into like the differences, really. I think you try to find similarities, if anything. I mean, obviously you realize that they think differently. What they eat is different. The culture is different. The way they dress is different. Everything is different. But, when they're family, it's like, you just understand why they're like that. Does that make sense? And it was always so great because, I could have a better understanding of the world that my mom like grew up in, or both my parents, but especially my mom, because we'd be with that side of the family more. It's a cool thing because you can connect the things like, oh, that's why she's like this, or oh, that's why she thinks like that, and me too, because it goes through me. It's just that you don't have that connection unless you go there. And yeah, so it's different. I think I'm aware that it's different. I think because I traveled a lot, I was fortunate enough to be able to see other cultures as well. But even for my cousins who live in France, like even when they saw me like last, like they would say things to me like, "Wow, you walk different. You walk like an American." And I'm like, "What does that mean?" Like I literally had this conversation with my mom the other day. I was like, "What did like Aris, my cousin Aris, said that to me?" And he was just looking at me. He's like, "Why do you walk like an American?" I'm like, "What does that mean?" He's like, like the way that you're like you hold yourself. I'm like, "What does that mean?" And like I couldn't think. We can't explain it, but it's different, and that's the same way how like when I see French people here in the U.S., I know like right away by the way they dress, by like their body type, and just their faces. Like they just look French. So so I can't even explain to you what it is. But so my cousins have told me that, and there's just these little like subtle differences that are actually not so subtle, but they are to us because we don't realize it.
I've never heard somebody say that you walk like an American.
Yeah, me neither. But I guess you had to get out the country and hear it from a French person but they see but I understand it. It's just like in France, if you go to Paris, you see the way everybody is. Like they're always like, stern face, looking like super angry because they're just French. And then everybody walks at a fast pace, like here people, walk like slow, kind of chill. Maybe that's what he saw. Even though I walk fairly fast, like compared to all my American friends.
I mean, I've been told by family that I walk fast, but that was probably because
you were in the city.
Yeah, I was in the city, and like I walk at a New York pace.
New York pace, exactly. There's a Paris pace.
Right. Yeah. If you're walking at this miles per hour, like, people are going to push you out.
Literally. We got places to go. Things to do.
I've been prone to, or I programmed myself to become a fast walker because I was in an environment of fast walking people.
Exactly. So it's fascinating. That's cool. Those are the things that I love to like. I love to notice, or I love to see. Like anytime I'm in France, I'm like, damn, like this is so cool. It's really cool, and being able to speak the language and understand is like, oh, it's such a blessing because I'm like, damn. What if I was here and I had no idea like how the culture was, what the people were saying? It's just different. It's a different experience. So you really get an inside look into what it is to be French. It's pretty cool.
And you bring up fashion as being one of the big parts of French culture, and whenever you see Hind, I'm sure people that we've worked with have seen Hind when she comes to the games.
Oh my god!
She dresses very fashionably. And, like, it's like, wow, she has to get that from somewhere. Because, you think about the different, different brands that, were established in France. You think about the big ones like Louis Vuitton.
Yeah.
Cartier's French, right?
I'm not sure if Cartier is, but Chanel is.
Chanel. Dior. Dior. So.
Hermes. I think Hermes is French.
Hermes. And then.
Maybe.
Yeah. I think also, like, isn't, what's that brand that Rihanna's always with? Fendi? They're French.
Fendi?
Or
is Fendi Italian?
Oh, they're Italian.
It might be. Yeah. But of course, like French, the French have a lot of, they're number one, I think, in fashion. I get a lot of inspiration from French fashion, Japanese fashion, and just being, simple, elegant, timeless, and also comfortable because I like to be comfortable. So, I'm always in sneakers and usually wearing black and then just like flowy things. But in France, it's very, very simple. They're very simple in their approach as far as fashion, makeup. So that's what I think I take from that for sure.
Yeah, because I think and this is just me speaking as like a traditional American, it's like, when we see French fashion or, European fashion, we're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, but it's very serious. Like it's a lifestyle. It's not like I'm not just dressing up because there's an occasion. Like Americans are very much into comfortability. Like that's super important. In France, it's not about that. And also like you think of how many people you see as well. Like you can go about your business in the US, in most countries, not really seeing that many people. You know what I mean? So you can get away with it. And also like just the American mentality is about being comfortable, about we let everybody kind of do whatever, they express themselves however they want. In France, it's not like that. Fashion is number one, and it's like we're dressing up every single day. I mean, like my auntie literally dressed up to go take the trash out. Like it's a serious thing. Like you can't have people like seeing you looking crooked, and and it's beautiful. Honestly, it's so cool to see because I love like you just walk the streets and you see the kids, the adults, whatever. But to me, it's like the elder, like the grandmas and grandpas that are stepping out. Like they be stepping out and like wearing clothes like age appropriate clothes, but just killing it. Like you're just like, wow, that looks amazing. Yeah, it's super cool.
You ever seen that scene from Coming to America when Hakeem's father? You haven't seen?
No, there's a lot of American movies that I haven't seen. I think my parents watched that. I think because that's like their time. I think, and it's like you had to see that movie, especially if you're not American. But hey, I have a lot of movies I gotta catch up on.
Well, there's a scene in the movie to where Hakeem's father. I know I'm gonna spoil for you.
It's okay, spoil it.
But like, there's a scene in the movie where Hakeem's the Prince of the Moon, the fictional country that's based in the movie. Like, he goes to New York and all that to find a wife, and then his father, who's the King of Zamunda, comes to New York, and they're going to the barbershop that's underneath the apartment that Hakeem and his friend live in, and then like they're so amazed by the way that the king and his wife and his servants are dressed, that there's this one Jewish guy in one of the chairs, and he touches on the robe that he's wearing, and he's like, "What is that, velvet?" It's just I feel like that's the one I bring this up because I feel like when we think about foreign fashion, and the French brands, that, and like when we see them being worn like by American people. It's like that's the mentality that we have. It's like, oh wow, this is good. What's the material?
No, for real. No, it's really like that.
Yeah, but I kind of want to switch gears in regards to like the Olympics coming up this summer in Paris, and it's a huge deal. Of course, we're surprisingly like only 3 years removed from the last Olympics being in Tokyo, which, had some storylines in there, but I don't think it had like the big extravagance that you would expect from like previous Olympics. Like, the one before Tokyo was Rio, which was like a huge year. The one before that, it was London, and the Beijing one. So it's like actually one of my personal ones that I'd like to go back and watch sometimes, like the Beijing Olympics. Because we had Usain Bolt. We saw the rise of him. I think actually it was. Oh yeah. 08 in Beijing. That was the year of the Redeem team, for like the national team for U.S. basketball, taking home the gold. That was like when LeBron, Kobe, those guys were in their prime, and like London, the rise of the U.S. gymnastics team, the women's gymnastics team, like huge.
Biles, was she doing that one?
I think Simone Biles was in that one. I know like Gabby Douglas, she was in the way. Okay. Like, she was kind of the one that stole the show. Okay. And Simone Biles, like, she burst on the scene in Rio.
Okay, that's right.
And then, carried on from there. But, just the games going back to Paris this summer, it's been a while since the games were even in Paris. We're talking, like, way back in, like, the 40s, the 50s, when the last time Paris hosted the Summer Olympics. But, you just talk about the appreciation that the French have for sports altogether, because like in France, like soccer is the big one. Basketball, even Formula One, motorsports racing, huge there. Track and field, and even
equestrian also.
Yeah, equestrian,
and fencing,
judo.
They're really good
judo, and even cycling. Like the world famous Tour de France, which actually, like by the time this episode goes up, I think it's starting sometime next week. Like they're huge into cycling. It's like one of the biggest races in the world. And then even for me being a motorsports guy, as people know, this past weekend, they had the 24 Hours of Le Mans, like world famous race, one of the crown jewels in motorsports. So, just having such big ties to the country of France and your dad being from there, just talk a little bit more about the appreciation that the French have for sports altogether.
Yeah, I think they have a big appreciation for sports. I think the beautiful thing about it now is that competition is starting to get closer. So like back then it was like, the US would just dominate in every sport and everything. And now like the other countries are slowly like they're following suit, and it's a cool thing to watch, especially like the French athletes and French sports. So I think it's going to be a good Olympic Games this year. It's cool that it's in France. Cool that it's in Paris. Not so cool that it's going to be in the middle of summer and it's going to be hot and it's going to be crowded. And I have no idea how they're going to like actually make it happen. So I'm eager to see that. But as far as the games itself, like, yeah, I think it's super cool that it's back in France for sure.
And I know one cool thing I actually just learned because I love watching the Olympics. I mean, I like since I was old enough to understand the extravagance and the spectacle of the event itself. Like one of the things that I recently learned was that they did a torch lighting, like in Athens, because Athens, Greece is the origination for where the Olympics came from. Dating back all the way to the time of Hercules. Just seeing how the Greek influenced the game, influenced sports and athletic talents being on big display. And I recently saw like the coronation that they did just to light the torch. When it comes to the torch relay that they do traditionally for when they bring the torch like all over the world, and like they travel to like the different countries to have somebody like running with it, doing a relay. And then in the end come the opening ceremonies for the games. Like there's someone that's lighting the torch, and then it's just this eternal flame that stays on until the games are over. That tradition, in itself is big. And I was watching the live stream for it when the torch made it to the French coast. I think it was in Marseille where they dropped it off at.
Okay.
And it was like a huge celebration. Like there were thousands of people. They were carrying it off a boat, like kind of like a pirate ship looking boat. And then there's like this the symphony playing the theme of the Paris Olympics. So it's a huge deal. For sure.
Yeah. It's a really big deal. My grandma actually held the torch in French Guiana. Yeah, shout out to her. I need to show you the pictures, remember? Because we said it might happen. We don't know, but she was holding that torch. Wow. So she held the torch in French Guiana. Hopefully, maybe Philip can like insert the picture. I'll send it to you. For sure. So I was watching that live. So funny. So yeah, shout out to her. But she was holding it in French Guiana. So I'm not sure how they're doing it as far as because French Guiana is in South America. I don't know what they're doing.
I think when it comes to that, I was reading some of that, so I was looking through the events, because they have surfing as one of the competitions, and they're using some of the like the French Polynesian territories to hold the surfing competition. I think also they're doing the same thing for sailing.
Okay.
I think there's like
probably like
that's how they're yeah. But I mean that's your grandma.
It's so random, huh?
Oh hell. That's a huge, like, I don't think you understand how big of an
No, maybe I don't. Because I was just laughing. I was like, what? She's really holding the torch? Like, give her the torch.
I mean, that's like the highest honor you can ever have.
I guess.
For like a ceremony, holding the Olympic torch. Because I was actually talking about this with my mom once, where, one of the big things that, she remembers from like when she watched the Olympics as a kid, it was that 1 year. I can't name off the top of my head what year it was or what summer it happened, but there's this footage of Muhammad Ali when he was holding the torch up, like at the games, like about to light it.
Yeah.
And it was just so captivating for the audience I was able to see, and the audience that was watching it on TV, that it was just like a moment in time where time just stood still, and like everybody was just
everyone's watching. I think that's what it is. It's
right.
Like you're at an event where the whole world is here, right? All the countries, people are representing their countries, like the athletes, and it's like the whole world is watching. I think that's what it is. The immensity of the moment.
Yeah, because like the opening ceremony itself is, I think the Olympics, like the IOC does a great job at conducting it. And they get the best of the best to choreograph the performances that are happening just to welcome the games. I mean, I'm very excited to see what they do for Paris in regards to just what choreography they're doing to open the games and just have this introduction for this big event. And even looking ahead in regards to the competitions or like the events that are taking place, because of course like the one of the reasons why I love watching the Olympics is that I get to see sports that I can't find easily on TV. You can't find gymnastics, maybe college gymnastics. Yeah, that's the easy find, but you can't find judo, taekwondo. You can't find fencing, archery, like shooting. You can't find any of those sports like on regular television. Like, I mean, come on, ESPN, what are we doing? Right? So but you also think about just the traditional sports as well. Track and field is like king
that's a big one.
of the games. Like everybody's tuned into track and field and just watching the 100-meter, 200-meter, the 4x100 relay, because that's like the biggest foundation that the Olympics have had early on. And then maybe boxing, but boxing in the Olympics probably wasn't super huge. It was huge when Muhammad Ali was going for the gold and trying to do everything he can to do that. But nowadays people turn their focus to gymnastics, turn it to basketball, because those are like the sports that people are going to get tuned into. But
and it makes room for new sports like skateboarding. Recently.
Man,
that's so cool.
Scott, I remember when they said the skateboard was going to be at Tokyo a few years back. I mean, that was major. I mean, because skateboarding is a huge part of American culture, especially here in California. But I think the guy that won gold for I think it was a skateboard park freestyle. He was from Japan. Here, I can't say his name for my life, but I think it's Hiro Niojima or something like that. But and then I looked him up after he won gold, and I saw oh, this guy's
is it Horigami? Is that his name?
I think it was like Hiro Yuto Horigami. But I looked him up and I saw that he was like the number one ranked skater in the world. It's like,
if we're talking about the same guy, I think he has like Nike SBs. They're dope.
Yeah, I mean,
nice fashion.
This guy's got it's endorsed by Nike. His own shoe.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Yeah, skateboarding is like one of those niche sports that I feel like you don't really watch it unless you're in it, but it's such a cool culture. Like, I always love skateboarding culture.
Yeah, because the closest thing I got to skateboarding was by watching the X Games growing up.
Okay, X Games.
That was like the closest thing to skateboarding I had. But one of the events that I saw that they're initiating this year in the Olympics is actually breakdancing.
Right. Yeah. I heard about that.
And it was funny.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was funny because when I saw the sporting list of the events, I saw breakdance. I was like, what? I can understand. There's athletic ability in breakdancing, but
there definitely is. But
I'm just thinking because I came across this video of when they were doing the qualifiers.
Okay.
For breakdancing. And I'm looking at the styles, and as far as just the competitors, I'm looking at dancers from Japan, from Italy. There's this one dude that was from the Netherlands that was, had like an American style in a way, but it shocked me that there weren't like a ton of American breakdancers, because breakdancing started in New York, during the hip hop. And I'm thinking how do you know that was sport?
Maybe that's why they added the sport.
Maybe, yeah. Because
are they doing softball or no?
I don't know. I don't think they're doing baseball or softball for this year. But, and I think the breakdancing was probably the replacement for that.
Okay.
Shockingly, though, and this is a big shock, how it's still not yet an Olympic sport, pickleball.
Oh, no. Not the pickleball. Oh, my God.
I mean, I think pickleball is like a perfect Olympic sport.
Is it, though? Is it even a sport? Is
yes.
Pickleball a sport? Let's unpack that. Listen, I can't. I can't with pickleball. They were taking our tennis courts and we were trying to practice, and they're out here 20 of them on one court, one half of a court. what is going on? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? I see the fun in it, because like you don't necessarily have to be like super athletic. You don't need to be like super coordinated. Like there isn't a lot of technique into it. You can pick it up. You can pick, not compared to tennis. You can pick it up and be decent. Anybody can pick up pickleball and be like decent at it. Obviously, like to be the best, I'm sure you got to be like, you have to be good, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, and they put so much money behind it. That's why that's one of the reasons why it like blew up. Like everybody and their moms.
For the long-time listeners of the All Field Players podcast, go to episode number 2. And like I did like a whole episode on pickleball and the growth of it, how it's going to blow up. So, yeah. But I can see your point though.
But yeah, it's mostly for that. I'm like, what are we doing? Why are y'all using the tennis courts? Like there already aren't that many tennis courts, and you guys are just coming over here and just go make your little pickleball court somewhere else.
Like I just think when it comes to adding sports into the Olympics, I feel like there's like some there's got to be some growth behind it. Yeah. I mean, it's a shock to me. Like, and again, this me being a motorsports guy, how there's not like a form of like racing in the Olympics. I feel like, the closest thing, of course, we're not going to have like full on Formula One cars or full on stock cars.
It should though. Why not?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's
already such a worldly like sport. Like there's like in Formula One, you have French people, you got, British people, you got Spaniards, you got Mexicans, you got so much. So why not?
Exactly. And I just think, of how global motorsports is, because, there's every country in the world like has some form of racing, whether that's like with cars, like motorcycles, something. Yeah. But I think probably the closest thing that the Olympics could have as far as just international competition for auto racing would probably be racing go-karts.
Okay.
Because go-karts, it's like small, compactable, you don't have to be on like a huge track like a super speedway or like a full on like FIA Formula One standard issue circuit. You could go to like a local go-kart racing track and have the competition there. I mean, I feel like that would be the closest thing to motorsports we would have. But like it's cool how much the Olympics has evolutionized when it comes to adding in different sports. Again, like dancing is like a far cry from track and field and soccer and golf and that. But, for me, like I don't want to see like the traditional sports. I don't want to like basketball is an outlier. Like I'll definitely watch basketball during the Olympics. I'll definitely watch track and field. Yeah. But like I'm not trying to see golf. I'm not trying to see soccer. I'm not trying to see, like like other
sports that you easily can have access to.
Right. Yeah. I'm not trying to see those. I'm trying to see like something different. Yeah, something different. The sports that don't get enough shine. Yeah. But I guess just to kind of go into that more, because like the facilities that I've seen that they're putting out for the Olympics, it's massive. I mean, and you just think about the landscape of Paris and like how they're trying to, have soccer here, they're trying to have like rowing here, they're trying to have like rowing is also an awesome sport too. Like they're trying to have mountain biking here. Just your knowledge of the Paris landscape, like what can you say about just the different athletic facilities that are based around the city that are going to be utilized during the games?
I mean, I'm pretty sure they have like decent facilities. I'm sure they built facilities probably to, for the Olympics. But personally, I think I prefer, having like the Olympic Village and like everybody kind of plays in the same, same area, kind of like they're able to do here in the US. But I understand it's not the same in France just because you're not dealing with as much ground and space. But yeah, I'm sure they're gonna build or they have built great facilities. Then it's, to me, if really the Olympics is more like transportation. Like how are they gonna do? Because you're all of a sudden adding so many of these like tourists and people who come for the Olympics, and it's like the metro system as it is already like so busy, just everyday life in Paris year round, let alone the Olympics. That would be, for me personally, that's going to be the most interesting thing to see.
And I think that's also brings up another point when it comes to cities hosting, global sporting events. Because, I've done, research and homework on like the aftermath of everything when it comes to, say if a country hosts the World Cup or a country hosts, the Olympics, or,
Right.
if I don't know, like if like some other big sporting event goes to a city, builds up all these facilities, and then once it's over, those facilities aren't being utilized for other things. Just kind of giving cities like this big gaping hole of infrastructure that's not being used in the right, like utilized anymore, just abandoned.
I think that's what happened in Brazil, no?
Yeah,
I had read an article about that.
Yeah. After Brazil hosted the World Cup back in 2014, those soccer stadiums that they built or that they had to renovate, putting extra money behind it, it hasn't really been able to sustain itself, or the cities in Brazil like haven't been able to sustain the facilities that they had to rebuild, especially even just putting the like I guess like the Premier League level of Brazilian soccer in those arenas. I mean, they can't. They're not drawing enough people to the game to where they can't draw a crowd to meet up with the revenue, match that with the expenses. And it's a big risk. It's definitely a big risk when it comes to cities hosting major events like that, because you're definitely talking about transportation. You're talking about tourism. You're talking about hospitality. You're talking about stadium management. I mean, all aspects that OFPs are responsible for when it comes to organizing this event, and also something to keep in mind if you ever find a job working for like a national committee to host international events. But yeah, I think as far as what I've been reading about Paris, what I've been like studying in regards to the videos that I see about the facilities in Paris for this summer, I think they're gonna learn a few things. I think they'll definitely use all the aspects of the city and try to manage it to the best of their ability. I'm sure they will, because you do want to have a positive reputation when it comes to hopefully Paris, I don't know, in 2060 or something, they'll probably host the games again, and they want to make sure they don't make the same mistakes. But yeah, I mean,
Macron, you ready? That's a real question. Is the president ready?
But yeah, that's like it's an exciting time for the games. I'm glad that this is a year that we get the Olympics, which is a huge deal. But Hind, I want to turn it back to you in regards to just what you're doing now as an official OFP. I mean, you've been baptized into the OFP lifestyle now. With your time interning with the Kings, and also like of course you got some other stuff going on that if you don't mind sharing with the folks.
So I was interning with the Kings for this past 2023-2024 season. And post Kings, I built a great relationship with Jabel, who's one of the players for the Sacramento Kings. And he's got his foundation. It's called Jug Life Foundation, where they really educate people on the importance of drinking water, how important it is for your health. And so like this past week, I was with him just shooting, behind the scenes footage of all his appearances, KCRA, ABC 10, Sacramento Bee interview, all that stuff leading up to the game, the softball Jug Life softball celebrity game on Saturday. It was a great success. It was a great turnout. It was great. We hope to continue to build on that. So as far as that goes, we'll see how what is to come from Jug Life and Javel's endeavors within the next few months. Aside from that, doing my own content creation, UGC, also teaching tennis. I have a few students that I coach. So yeah, just staying busy, keeping busy, and just waiting for opportunities to come my way.
As far as just like a dream opportunity for you, like whether you say on working with Jabal or continue to help read, like make like the next Andy Roddick or Roger Federer or next Naomi Osaka when it comes to coaching tennis players. Like what's like the long-term goal for you?
Long-term goal would be to do something that I enjoy, something that makes me happy, something that's not too draining to where I can also offer my attention in other things. So, whether that be with, creating content for a player specifically, or for a foundation, or for myself, or doing it all at the same time, I feel like that's where I'd be leaning towards, because, I have my foot in different things and I like it that way. It keeps my life exciting, it's fun, and I enjoy everything that I do. As far as content creation, it would be to have liberty and freedom to create content that I want to create, that, if it's for athletes, that humanizes the athletes. And, if it's for a foundation, that brings awareness to the foundation and its importance. And so long term would just be to do whatever makes me happy and fulfilled, and most likely in content creation and social media.
It's definitely awesome, and I know you're going to do great.
Thank
because
you.
I've seen, and believe me, I've seen it with my own eyes, the OFPs. I've seen how talented Hind is at her craft on social media.
Appreciate it.
And I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure you guys make sure you follow Hind to see the amazing work that she puts together, because I kid you not, OFPs, I mean, like, working alongside this amazing person here, a person that's full of joy, full of excitement, full of, love and care. It's one of my pleasures to work alongside with such a great person, and someone that's, self-motivated, that's, that's easily changed gears from being doing this one thing to doing another thing, and just being so great at it. Definitely a huge pleasure, Hind, for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Philip. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Well, folks, that's really it. That's all we have. Hind Abdelouahid just coming on for the All Field Players podcast. An informational interview. It's a lot of time in the making to definitely do this, but I definitely wanted to highlight this amazing person for sure. Of course, when I first told her about the podcast, she thought my game plan for doing this, it was incredible. Just talking about sharing the stories of people accomplishing big things in the sports industry, and that's something I want to continue to do with this podcast as it continues to go on. But yeah, Hind, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Philip.
Appreciate it. Talking,
Thank you.
About tennis, talking about the Olympics, talking about a lot of great things happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's going to do it for the Off Field Players podcast. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you watched all the way to the end, and as a reminder, if you tuned into the video version of this on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the Off Field Players podcast channel. And also, if you listen to the audio version of this, either on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, podcast or Podchaser, definitely make sure to follow and leave, a heart and a 5-star on the on the podcast for sure.
Same.
And also, still running the social media accounts for the All Field Players podcast as well. You can follow the podcast on Instagram at OFP_podcast. Again, it's at OFP_podcast, and also the same on TikTok as well at OFP_podcast. So definitely make sure to keep up to date with future episodes, any other updates that are happening, and also just show your support to those that are looking to be inspired to, hear great stories and hear about folks that are accomplishing big things in the sports industry, and hopefully, inspires that person that you share it with to want to go after a career in the sports industry. But yeah, that's gonna do it for us. Just having an amazing episode. Definitely make sure to tune in this summer for the 2024 Paris Olympics. I'm sure it's gonna be a big year. A lot of big storylines are going to be coming out in Paris, and yeah, a lot to be excited about. So thank you everybody for tuning in. Stay safe, stay motivated, stay blessed, and as always, make sure to achieve what you believe. Au revoir.
Au revoir.